you had also a near-death experience, and that was similar, no, different, you said, and it was outside the ayahuasca experience. I find that fascinating that you have so many mystical experiences and then also a near-death experience, and so many people have none of those. So would you like to share what happened?
Sure. I sought mystical experiences once I started to have them. And so I think if you seek those experiences and you give the opportunity to yourself to have them, you'll have more of them. You know, I don't think I'm special in that way. I think that once I had my first awakening, uh, which could also be thought of as a great interest in all of this, that I just opened up to it and started to allow it to happen, and then sought it for 20 years. And so if I think you do that and you practice plant medicine shamanism, you'll ultimately have many of these kinds of experiences that I'm talking about. And it's also the nature of the frequency. So to kind of put that in perspective, I've participated now and held myself over 3,000 plant medicine ceremonies, which is a lot of opportunity to have these experiences. So in 3,000 ceremonies, there's highlights of, like the top 50 mystical experiences that I've had. But I also dedicated my life to that. I was a mystic, and it was my passion. It was what most fueled me and interested me in life. The near-death experience was in my 3rd month of apprenticeship, and I got what's called falciparum malaria. And it's a small microorganism that lays eggs in your red blood cells, and it bursts your red blood cells when it hatches. And you typically have high fevers and shivers. And if it's not, it incubates for 2 weeks and then hatches, and it does it over and over again. And if your body can defeat it, you survive. And if not, you die. And in my case, the first 2 weeks were missed. It wasn't diagnosed. And so now I was going into the second emergence of it. And it started at about 10:30 in the morning. And when the hatching started and the red blood cells started to burst, and you get a very high fever very quickly. You can easily get to in centigrade, like 42, 43, 44, 45 fever. Maybe even higher. It can kill people. And so I was in a house in the city of Iquitos when this happened. And all of a sudden, I just felt like I was going to collapse and I needed to get to a bed. And so I was helped to a bed and I lay down. And over about the next 5 or 10 minutes, I felt this lack of oxygen start to take over my body. You would breathe, but not feel like you're getting any oxygen. Yeah. So normally you take a big breath. If you do it with me right now, you feel something in your body happen. It's the chemical reaction with the oxygen. Only now when you don't have the red blood cells, you take a big deep breath and you don't feel anything. And so that started to happen. And I realized something systemic was wrong. And there was no time to get to a hospital or anything like that. And I remember being very calm about it and just kind of relaxing. As this started to happen, there was nothing I could do. And then I felt different organ systems shut off. And it was like, oh, that's the liver. And then, oh, there's my kidneys. And I just felt these parts of my body stop working. And before I felt like my last breath, I just was already going. And so I felt like the body just got calmer and calmer and calmer and calmer. And then I was off. And I was in this space that was kind of nebulous. There wasn't defined walls or anything about it. And as I was looking around, I realized it was my life. My life was this multidimensional nebulous space that was now coming apart, and it was filled with spirits. It was filled with these energies. Spirits to me are just animated energies. So it was just filled with animated energies. And my ancestors were there, and all the people I had known in my life were there. Everybody from childhood, everybody from school, everybody that I had known, my whole family, everybody was there. And they were just kind of watching what was happening. And little by little, I was taken on this journey, and it was progressive, and it was recognition and a life review of everything that had happened in my life up until then. And so it was very slow. I felt like it took a very long time. Felt like it was years that it took to go through this process. And then as the process was over, I did find myself now in a place that was a shining bright light, and it was the quintessential tunnel of white light. And it was very vast and large at first. It had no end to how big it was, and it started to draw me into it. And I got further and further and further into the tunnel. I couldn't tell the distance. It just kept going and going and going, and it felt like a to infinity, that it would just continue to go. And as it did, it got denser and denser and smaller and smaller and denser and denser and smaller and smaller. And I remember getting to what all of a sudden looked like the end of it. It was right here. It was about 20 yards away. And I had this moment when I realized that that meant that I was truly gone, that was it. That was death. And I remember stopping myself at that point, almost like waking up from a hypnotic trance. And I looked at it and I said, I'm not ready to die. There's more for me to do here. I'm not done. Send me back to my body. And the end of the tunnel burst into light and burst into aliveness and consciousness. And it was aware of me and it knew me. And out of it formed a shape, almost cupped, like concave, like a big hand, but not with fingers, just a big shape like that came right out of it, and it hit me. And it hit me really hard. I remember it feeling like an explosion. It wasn't soft or gentle or anything like that. And I felt like that thing shoved me right back into my body. Just like what had felt like taking years to get there just went boom right into my body. And it was very violent. And then boom, I woke up in my body. And I was on the same bed. And I don't know how much time had passed in, clock time from the moment that it started to that moment that I was now awake in my bed. I just know that everybody in the room was sobbing that I was dead, and they were screaming, "What are we going to tell his mother? He's dead, he's dead, he's dead. What are we going to do?" That's the first thing I remember in the room. And then I was now awake, and I said to them, I'm alive, I'm alive. Get me to a hospital. And they went into shock and panic. They just could not, it was not a positive moment for them. They were very scared that I had come back from the dead for them. And so it took them a little while, a couple minutes, to calm down and realize I was okay. They were scared of me at first, and then they came and got me and carried me to a taxi and then rushed me to the hospital. And so that was my my experience.
To watch the full video, click the link below, and I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel.